What is up, sister friends? Welcome to another episode of Heart to Heart with Coach Emily. This week, we have another special guest, someone that I love so dearly, the one, the only, Rita Utterback, my amazing friend, Rita Utterback. She is going to be chatting with us today. I said your last name right, didn't I?
It kind of broke out a little bit, but I'm going to assume that you did.
Okay. You could hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So Rita, my wonderful friend Rita, is going to be chatting with us today. I'm super excited for us to get to know her and talk to her. If you guys missed last week's episode, we chatted with my awesome adventure coach, Katie Smith. So just make sure you're checking in every Wednesday to hear these amazing episodes. But Rita, I like all of my guests to introduce themselves because you know you best. So just give us a little intro.
So I'm Rita, and I am a functional nutritionist and certified holistic nutritionist. I have endometriosis, and endometriosis is my why into becoming a health coach and a nutritionist. So if you're somebody that has struggled with period pain or any kind of reproductive condition like endometriosis and PCOS, you know just how hard it can be to go to the doctor and have a nice little variety of treatment options handed to you. Oftentimes it's like, here's the pill, here's this super one size fits all diet. And then you're sent on your way and you're not really educated on your disease and how to efficiently manage it and how to do so in a more natural and holistic way. And that is what I strive to do with my clients. Incorporating a more functional and integrative approach to managing my disease is ultimately what allowed me to get to a place where I was able to heal my endometriosis symptoms. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a brief summary of who I am and how I kind of ventured into this space.
It was perfect. It was perfect. So I personally don't struggle with those things, PCOS or endometriosis, but having someone like Rita in your corner is powerful because I feel like, and you can speak to this too, Rita, like you feel kind of alone when you're dealing with all of those symptoms.
So alone. And I think that's one of the hardest. That's what was one of the hardest parts of my journey, is navigating through this and not really having a lot of people in my life who knew what I was going through, right? Like the people that were supposed to help me weren't really helping me in the way that I need. For some women, birth control does work really great. It manages their endo well and their PCOS well. For other women, it can cause major symptoms like anxiety and depression. For me, I was definitely on that end of the spectrum. So my mental health was, majorly spiraling because of the fact that I was on birth control. So I felt really alone and just in my head because of the meds I was on to manage my disease, but nobody around me was going through what I was going through. I was in college and struggling with painful periods and pelvic pain and was going through medically induced menopause to manage my endo. And it was weird, my friends are out partying and I'm talking to my doctor about my doctor's telling me I need to take this menopause drug that's going to help shut off my hormones for a while to stop the growth of my disease. So it definitely was a very, very lonely journey, and back kind of whenever I was struggling with endo, at my worst, social media really wasn't a thing. Instagram was not a thing 12, 13 years ago. And if it was a thing, it was just starting out. There wasn't support groups and stuff like there are now. You can't just, now you can search the endometriosis hashtag and just go read, content for days if they use that hashtag. So it definitely was a very, very lonely journey, but it did get better. It does get better. And now that I think technology has advanced and social media has advanced, I've honestly been able to connect with so many women online, some women that I can now call my best friends who also have endo, and they make this journey worth it. It's, I don't know, having a support system, no matter whether or not you have a chronic illness, support system is quite literally everything. As humans, we need community to survive. And it's especially true whenever you have a chronic illness.
Yeah. And I would say two things. One, I didn't forever even know what endometriosis was. I had no concept of what PCOS was or endometriosis was. And I definitely feel like it has become I don't want to say popular because it's not popular, like a trendy thing. It's just like the awareness has increased so much, and finding your people to talk about it too, it like Rita said, is very important. Whether you're, and even like she said, if you don't have a disease, like as entrepreneurs, like us having friends who are other entrepreneurs, I feel like it's like life or death. Like
I'm like aggressively nodding my head because like me and Emily help keep each other afloat behind the scenes.
I'm barely hanging on. How are you? Also hanging on.
Love it.
When you started, like, so that was in college, you were like, you were starting to work on your endometriosis. And when did you get off birth control?
So I got my diagnosis for endometriosis in college. So I was 21 at that time. I'm now almost 33. Or I was 20 actually. I was 20 at that time, now almost 33. And okay, pause. Do you edit your stuff at all?
No. It's okay.
I
don't know how to edit. Just go with it. It's fine.
Dang it. Okay. Refresh my memory what we were talking about. Sorry.
I was just asking, when did you get off birth control? Because like you're saying, you're on like menopause stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I got my diagnosis early on, like, you know, in my early 20s. And then I didn't come off birth control until my late 20s. So actually just like, I think like right when COVID started. So it was like earlier to like mid 2020 is when I actually came off birth control. So I was on birth control for a long time, tried many, many, many different options. And whenever like right before COVID hit is when I started to like really dive into a more functional approach to my endometriosis and how to manage it. And that's when I was like, oh, wait, like I can manage my disease without birth control. This is possible. I've never been taught such things. And then I started to read and like learn from like all these period and hormone experts like Dr. Jolene Brighton and Dr. Laura Brighton, and just, you know, all these people that spend so much time talking about how to support the menstrual cycle and how to come off birth control. And I was able to do so. And my periods off birth control have been fine. In fact, like I feel like my periods were worse when I was on birth control because I don't feel like birth control just agreed with my body point blank. Now, when I was on the pill, I was also living my life like an asshole in my early 20s. I mean, most people are, right? Like most 20-year-olds are not running around focusing on eating their fruits and their veggies. I mean, girl, I did not have the money. I like lived off of ramen noodles and I was in nursing school for a little while. So there were times when like eating and sleeping was just far and few between, girl. So yeah, but yeah, I ended up coming off, you know, about over 3 years ago now, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Also, yes, I agree. Like when I was 21, all I cared about was being skinny. So I was just eating as little as possible, and it was just crap. But I read Dr. Jolene Brighton as well. And back when I'm 31. I think I got off birth control when I was like 24, 25. Because I read her book and I was like, I'm doing this. I'm getting off of this shit. And I don't know. I don't know if everyone has this experience, but my body, it was like going through like drug withdrawals. Like I was shaking and sweating. I was sick for 3 days. Like I couldn't stand up. I thought I was going to pass out. Like it was bizarre. It was bizarre.
Whoa.
It was so weird. I don't know. Because I had been on the depot shot for 6 years. Then I did the pill. I refused to do like the IUD or like the little copper things. It just freaked me out too much. So I did like the pill, and then I got off of that. And that's what caused me I was like sick.
Sick. Oh my gosh. How long did that last after you came off?
Probably like a week. But I also think it pairs with like at that time is when I was a psycho vegan. And
I love when you talk about your psycho vegan era.
my psycho vegan era, I was like not eating anything like I just ate like vegetables, and like I wasn't really like nourished. So
Like
I don't know if that plays a role in it. Huh?
Like the raw diet?
Yeah, like I needed intervention at that point.
Diet probably did play some role, but just
Yeah.
in the way birth control acts, it can very much so, deplete your nutrients. So, sucks that you kind of felt like the withdrawal from the hormones, because that's
Yes.
essentially what's happening to your body. Everyone's symptoms when they come off birth control is so different. Like some women come off and they have like no symptoms. Some women come off and they don't have a cycle for 6 months. Some women a year. Some people get pregnant instantly, like after they come off. Like it's really so different. Like when I got my IUD taken out, I feel like my transition was very mild, because at that point in time, I was at the 5-year mark and the hormones had basically faded out. So I was cycling every month. I could feel it. Being a woman who has PMDD, like I could very much so, as soon as I would ovulate, I would very much so struggle with my mental health. And as soon as my cycle would come, I would feel brand spanking new and just like a brand new person. And I don't know, birth control is a wild journey, y'all. It's a wild journey. But again, everyone's experience is different. Some people have no issues throughout their whole process. And for some people, it's a living nightmare. So
yeah. So how did you end up connecting, or like, because Rita is like gut and hormone specialist essentially. So how did you end up like putting the two together? I feel like I've never asked you that question.
you mean in regards to like my birth control, or just in regards to like my
Like your,
hormones and gut affecting endo?
yeah, I guess the second one, and like your business and being like, I'm going to work with both of these things.
So I think just like, recognizing that when you have a condition like endometriosis, and like obviously the more you read and learn, which is basically an autoimmune disease, like it's multifactorial. You can't just like look at the hormones. You can't just like, oh, it's a bad period with endo. Like that's why I think so many women continue to struggle with endo. And it's because their doctors attack it like it's a period disease. And it's like, bro, it's not a uterine disease. It's a disease that affects the immune system. So
wow.
just really like, and I, even though like I did have a lot of pelvic pain, I did have a lot of, period pain, I also had a tremendous amount of gut issues. I literally, my first endo symptom was constipation. I really struggled with my digestion before I even really started with period pain and pelvic pain. Then I think birth control kind of really amplified that, living like an asshole in college. And that's kind of where I was kind of at my worst. But anyways, as I started to kind of like learn a little bit more about like how to eat to support your body, right? Being mindful of, eating more nourishing foods, working on eating fiber, eating enough fiber, drinking enough water, exercise, some of the most basic freaking things, right? My digestion started to improve some. Now it didn't like completely get better with all that. For most autoimmune people, they might have to do a little bit more than that.
Right.
But that was, a great way to kind of get me started. And, as I, man, my journey went on for a while. So I made all these changes. Things got better, right? Like I started to have a little bit of less bloat. I started going more regularly. Okay. And things just got better for me. Like my digestion was a big driver of my endo. So like anytime I would eat something that would cause me to flare, whatever, or it would just trigger my digestion, I knew it was going to cause pain for me. So I really just started to try to be mindful of my gut health. When things really just kind of continued on, despite me making these little changes and adding in a variety of gut health supplements like greens and digestive enzymes and all these other little things that I didn't know that I needed. Oh, and probiotics. Things didn't get better. Things continued to get worse. And that's kind of when I decided to work with a functional practitioner and started to dive a little bit deeper. And as I started going through my journey and like learning more about it, I don't know, I was like, okay, like I knew when I became a health coach, I really, really, really wanted to help women learn how to holistically manage their disease. But going through the journey myself and, really kind of being in the thick of it, as I started to work with this functional practitioner, I actually worked with a couple,
Oh,
I sometimes, just like with dating, you don't always match with the right provider or practitioner on the first try, right? So the first person I worked with, we were able to get some answers, but I still just was not getting better. And then the second one I was working with, we were able to kind of dig a little bit deeper and figure out why, like I was still having these persistent gut issues. We ended up, realizing mold was a big issue for me. I was living in a home with black mold and didn't really think about how much that was affecting me. And I'd lived there for several years, lived in a home with black mold before I moved into that home with black mold and had multiple black mold exposures in college. So there was just a lot of that. And then some other gut issues that very much so impacted my symptoms. And I think just like really going through that and just like seeing the power of your gut, the power of your environment, like things like mold, how much that can drive autoimmunity, and just seeing it like in my clients, because I do work with so many women that have endometriosis and Hashimoto's, and they're also in homes with black mold, or they've been exposed, or they, you know, they have these other really concerning environmental exposures. You know, I don't know. I was just like, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. And this is like I always wanted to help people. Like back in college when I was in nursing school, like I knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to help women, and just, you know, I don't know, I just really wanted to help people heal, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that in healthcare, or in conventional healthcare. And I don't know, I just kind of ventured deeper into this little functional nutritionist journey, and ain't no looking back, honey. We in it for the long haul.
Don't you guys love the way Rita talks? It's my literal favorite. She
I'm
always
kind of
says
ratchet
like,
sometimes.
yeah, I love it. So that is just so powerful. And because like you have this like deep rooted, like, I want to heal people. I love that you say heal people, right? It's not, you're not like, oh, I just want to help people. It's like, I want to heal. And like, healing is a process, such a process, takes so much time. And to have someone like you, Rita, by someone's side through that journey is just so cool. It's just so cool. And what is your profile number for human design? I'm curious.
I have no idea.
You know,
let me see. No, I actually have the file on my computer. I do just like want to like say this, that like I cannot cure my clients. And like, while I very much so like do talk about healing, like I'm gonna give you the tools, but you're the person at the end of the day that's going to do the healing, right? Like I'm going to help you get there. I'm going to help you figure out what your specific body needs. Cause I'm gonna tell you what, not every person needs to be cutting out gluten, dairy, soy, meat, nightshade vegetables. Like, oh my God. If you have autoimmunity, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So like, you know, I just, keep it simple. I'm trying to find my human design thing. I really, really am, because oh wait, my profile number, you said, oh, I thought it was a 5'2".
What are you?
Projector.
No, 5'2" projector.
Oh wait, it just says profile 5'2", and then it says my inner authority is self-projected.
Okay, so I was curious with the 5'2", if it what that number was, 5'2" or 5'1" or whatever. I'm a 5'1". So me and Rita are both projectors. I'm 5'1", she's 5'2". So funny. So 5'2" is heretic, hermit, and the human design has the worst names for shit. Like it doesn't
educate me.
So heretic is the 5. I was curious if you had a 1. The reason I asked is I thought you may have had a 1 in your profile, because 1 is the investigator, meaning like loves the research, projectors love research and things like that. But if you had a 1, it's the investigator.
Like, isn't that me? That's who I am in real life.
But so the weird. 5, the heretic, is someone who's like wants to solve problems, wants to like, find solutions, and, be there to serve and help others. And you and I are alike in those ways, just in different, so the 2 is the hermit, meaning they call you the hermit because you like to be alone. You like to kind of like, you have that introvertedness, but then the 5 is actually the extrovert. So it's like kind of like extroverted introvert. You got going there.
That like totally sums me up perfectly, because literally just like we were talking about before we hit record, sometimes it's really nice to be alone and recharge. But I also do need to be around people. So
yes, it's balance.
Yes,
it's balance. Yeah, projectors love to be alone, and not in a way that's like, I don't like people. It's just like, I need so much recharging time. It's crazy. So I think it's just so like, God works in such mysterious ways, because people who have chronic illness like yourself, going out, doing a ton of things, it's like a lot on your body. And so you need that time to like recharge, be alone, and, heal, work on your self healing and all of that. So I think it's just kind of like wrapped up perfectly in you, Rita, just like how you live your life, how you naturally are energetically. And yes, you have this chronic disease, and I know it's painful and hard, but sometimes like I think like the worst, quote unquote, worst things, or the messiest things about us are our biggest blessing, because if you didn't have that, you may not even be in this realm of the world right now, like doing this.
I don't think I would. And I'm gonna be honest, I am a person that needs like a bumper. Okay. I'm a very like dive in hard and like, oh, I'm gonna put my hand on the stove even though I know it's hot type of person. So endo is like my bumper. I joke about that all the time, but like my endo is like what keeps like helps me create limits sometimes, because girl, I used to not have any limits or boundaries. We still working on it. But you're right, girl. Like I honestly would not be where I am today at all if I did not have endo. And I don't know, it's really allowed me to grow in so many different ways, and not just in terms of like me healing and like feeling better and being in a place where my disease is no longer impacting my life, but just like who I am as a person and realizing like what's really important in life and what isn't. Like the shit I used to stress out about, and like now, like girl, I used to be a clean freak. I let go of that shit a long time ago. Okay. Now I'm like, oh, there's dishes in the sink. Okay, they'll sit there. Like little things like that, which I know sounds really, really, really small, but just like letting go and like, you know what I mean? Like realizing you cannot do everything, and like that has to be okay sometimes. So
yeah,
a lot of it is mental work, but
no, I can only imagine. Like I don't have personally an autoimmune disease that I know of. I don't know. I've never had it tested or anything, but I feel like I would maybe know. But like anxiety, like when I realized I had anxiety and was just an anxious human, like it did force me to grow so much. Like I had to constantly battle it and understand it and move through it and walk, all those things. So I think like it's super powerful when you, and does saying like my disease, did that used to bother you having to say that, or how was there like a process with that?
I used to very much so identify with endometriosis, and it was really hard for me to talk about. Like it still to this day is like something that is like I have to like actively try to talk about it, because for so long it was something that I don't know, like, like I was saying earlier, it felt really, really alone for so long, and I didn't have people to talk to. So sometimes I'm still kind of like in that mindset, to where I don't feel like I can talk about it, even though I know I can. But it did used to bother me. Now, not so much. Now I'm like, whatever. Like it's not all of my life anymore. It's not my entire identity like it used to be. It's just something that I have to deal with, and that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm glad, because it's not. I don't say like, oh, Rita, my friend with endometriosis. I say,
please don't do that.
I do not. Would never, right? Because I don't
I know.
like, but it is so easy to identify with things about ourselves or things that we have to deal with, right? Like if you were like, who are you? You're like, oh, I have endometriosis. Or I was, I would used to say, oh, like I had a traumatic childhood. I have anxiety. I have all these, and that's just not who I am. Like I don't identify with those things anymore. So I think it's like a really big gap to close as you grow and heal on your like personal development journey.
So important, because I honestly could not fully heal until I really just, I stopped identifying with it. I recognized that it was something that I did have to struggle with, but it wasn't my whole life,
Right.
So many people get sucked into the victim mentality with a chronic illness. And I mean this with love, because I was somebody that was there once. Like it is on you to manage your disease. And so often we get really lost in the sauce, just kind of with our healthcare system and only having Band-Aid options handed to us. But I think it's just really important to, just, I don't know, advocate for yourself and just recognize that, it is challenging, but the longer you keep identifying it, the more you're like, oh, I have ADHD and I have this, I have that, I have this. Like your brain is only going to look for those things, right? Like, okay, you have endometriosis, cool. But now you're like, okay, you know what I mean? Like your brain is going to look for everything about endo that is impacting your life in some way, right? And it's okay to say I have endo, but there are just some people that literally like it is their identity. Every disease diagnosis they have is like, and that's all they can see. And don't think that what am I trying to say? They don't accept responsibility for their actions. They're just like, okay, this is just something I have. That's it.
Yeah, no. So I know those people like, oh, like it's all they can't see past it. It's almost like it's like right here on your nose and it's all you're looking at and thinking you're only looking through the lens of that identification, just like if you even to make it smaller, you may not have a disease, you may not have depression or anxiety or ADHD or anything, but maybe you're always saying, I'm a hard worker, I work hard. You only identify with that one slide of yourself instead of saying like, these are things that you do or you have, but they're not like who you are. And I think that you being able to overcome that hump and be super vulnerable and honest about it, like that's where you're going to be able to help your clients so much, because I'm sure when you first get your diagnosis, that's literally, you feel like this is the cross I now have to bear, and this is all I can think about, kind of thing.
Oh my God, 100%. So like, while I say like some people get sucked into the victim mentality, like part of it is valid. Like I said, you know, the way that our healthcare system paints conditions like endometriosis and autoimmunity is that it's this doom and gloom condition, and you have to take pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life. They don't give you any inch of hope that you can reclaim your life without having to get cut into repeatedly or have to take synthetic hormones for the rest of your life. Like if you do find an OBGYN like that, like there are not very many of them. Okay, I wish we could copy and paste, but it's just not possible. Okay. Like the way healthcare is run, the way that these doctors are educated on the disease in medical school, they're not being taught to look at anything besides, oh, this is a period condition, therefore you give birth control. Like they're operating off of research that came out in the 80s, bro. Like we are so behind the times. And, you know, I don't know. What can we do?
What can we do? We hire people like Rita is what we do. I actually have I might not be the only one. Can you explain endometriosis just a little bit more, like what it looks like, feel like how it manifests or however it is? Because I think, like, to be honest, like I know that it's only, you know, it's a female menstrual cycle thing, but I don't even feel like that's fully correct. So I think like if you could just give a blip of what that actually looks like.
Yeah. So endometriosis is a disease in which tissue, where tissue that is similar to the lining of the uterus, similar to, not the same, okay, grows outside of the uterus. And each month, this tissue will kind of thicken and shed, just like the lining of your menstrual cycle. But it's doing this in your abdominal cavity and inside your body, which can cause scar tissue and adhesions, kind of cause your organs to stick together. These little endo lesions can kind of spread. Some people will get like endometriomas, which are masses, you know, that are caused by the endometriosis. And it kind of grows like a cancer in the sense that it can kind of take over your organs, and it's been found on every single organ in the body. So it's not just confined to the reproductive tract. And the reason why I said it is similar to the lining of the uterus and not the same as the lining of the uterus is because of the fact that this is why OBGYNs keep prescribing birth control and these kinds of hormone drugs for birth or for endometriosis, because they operate with a notion that it is the lining of the uterus instead of being similar to the lining of the uterus. So like, again, they're really operating off of super outdated research, and it shows, girl. Okay. It really, really shows. But yeah, so it can cause things like painful periods. Like I mentioned, it can cause bladder issues, digestive issues. Like I know women with endometriosis that have lost their bladder because endometriosis took over their bladder, women who've lost their kidneys, who've lost part of their bowels. Like it can take organs. Okay. And that's why like it's a really big deal, and why like we need to start with educating women correctly at the very beginning when they get their diagnosis, and not just trying to throw the pill at them or throw them on these super like aggressive hormone suppressive medications and then just offering surgery after surgery. Because every time you get cut into, that creates more scar tissue. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just going to cause more pain, which could cause more adhesions. Like I know women with endo that have had 4, 5, 6 surgeries. And it's just like, at what point do we advocate for the patient and say enough is enough? There has to be another way.
Wow.
So
when they do this surgery, are they like trying to remove the adhesions?
Yeah, so there's 2 different kinds of surgery for endometriosis. There's ablation surgery, which is a surgery where they go and burn the tissue of endometriosis. So this is kind of like the Band-Aid surgery in the sense that the recurrence rate is like 65%. So
oh my God,
65% of that endo will regrow within a 5-year time period. So but this is the most standard surgery performed for endometriosis across the board. Most OBGYNs are qualified to perform this. Now there's a more advanced surgery called excision surgery, and that is where the specialized advanced surgeon goes in and actually excises the tissue, cuts it out like they would cut out a cancer. So they go in and like remove it from the root and everything. So the recurrence rate is like 10 to 15%. So it's a lot less than the other option, but it's not a cure. Endometriosis does not have a cure. So that's why like I spend time talking about gut health and like talking about stress and talking about your environment, because like this shit matters. We don't just develop autoimmunity. Like healthcare loves to just blame genetics for everything, but you're not doomed and gloom because your mom has endo or your mom has, you know, hypertension or high cholesterol, right? Like how you live your life, you know, what you're exposed to in your environment, what you eat on a day-to-day basis, epigenetics, these kinds of things can actually trigger the, you know what I mean? Trigger the, you know, trigger autoimmunity. So we have to look deeper. We have to look at the gut. We have to kind of look at the full picture and not just be like, oh, endometriosis causes painful periods. Here's birth control. And that's it. Like, no.
Oh my God. Also, like those surgeries sound terrifying.
I've never had the latter surgery. I've only ever had the ablation surgery. I've had 3 surgeries total. The first one was not actually a surgery for endo. At that time, I was having pelvic pain, and I truly think I had endo, but my doctor did not see it at that time. We went in to surgery with the intent of removing an ovarian cyst that was causing me a lot of pain, and I don't believe that he explored at that time. Within literally not even a year, I was under the knife again because I was still having repeated pain, and I did actually get my endometriosis diagnosis. And then I had another surgery for endo like 2 or 3 years after that. So I had like 3 abdominal surgeries in like 5 years. So like the recovery time, like after the third one, was so miserable. Like I wasn't working out and exercising at this point in my life. Right. So I think that probably would have helped my recovery. But it's very taxing on the body, you know, to be cut into, especially when they cut over the same incisions over and over. It's like, yeah, it's not ideal. So this is why like men would never freaking tolerate this. And this is why we have to do better. Not to go on a rant, girl, but men would never stand for this. That's all. You know it's true. Would Austin deal with this? Nope. Travis wouldn't either.
I love when Rita goes, I'm not going to rant, but I'm just saying.
So to throw a little bit in there.
Yeah, it's true. They would not. Also, and we can go on a small rant because if you guys don't know, most research is done on white males. For the health world, wellness, health and wellness. Most research is done on white males, which this isn't even just us being like feminists. Like, what about the women? Like, they don't do the research on Black males, Hispanic males, Asian males. Like, it's just white males, and everybody's different. And so this is why there's people like Rita out here in the world trying to advocate for women, especially women. You know, Rita's a woman of color. Like, all of these things hit home for her, and that's why she has such passion for it. It's not hate, it's passion, because there's people who are being left out on powerful research that could help thousands of people. So I don't think it's a rant in a negative way, and I hope nobody ever takes that, because it's just, there are more people in this world than white men. So we need to do the research and advocate for those who are not being seen, because health, you know, if you work in the fitness space, health is one of your main core values. Like, we didn't get into this because we don't value health, and we value health for all people. So I think you are correct, Rita, darling.
It's insane, really, but
it is insane. It is insane.
The fact that you even brought up the minority component, because like that's like a whole other layer and like a whole rabbit hole we can't even get into today. But like, you're right though, like the literature, it's also limited. And like, even like I literally said, we're operating off of research from the 80s. Like, the fact that most of the studies of endometriosis are still in animals, like, what are we doing here? Do y'all not care? Because like, this is ridiculous. And also another reason why we need to stop staying married to the literature. Like, these little gym bros, these people with their PhDs that love to sit here and act like everything that's printed in a research article is word and fact, and that's it. Like, you are not helping people. You are like, I literally saw a guy with a PhD literally insult somebody in the comments and like deny their reality because they were expressing how something, he was talking about how like, I don't know, something wasn't inflammatory. And they were like, well, it makes me feel not great. And then he literally just like came back at that person and like invalidated them. And I'm like, you can have your opinion, but like, do not start invalidating other people's realities because you don't believe it. Like, okay, cool. You got your PhD, you do research for a living, but not ever, like, research has its limitations. And as somebody that did research in undergrad, I got published. If y'all want to look it up, I did do research in college. I loved it. I love y'all. I'm a nerd. Okay. But if you do not have funding for your research, it will not happen. It will not get done. All right. And who funds your research is just as important as what's printed in that article, because honey, shit can get tampered with. It has happened. I took a medication that was never supposed to make it on the market because the clinical findings were tampered with, and it is still on the market today, y'all. So not saying this to make y'all scared, but also just keep in mind that like, it's okay to think outside the box and think for yourselves and not just believe every single thing that you read in a research article and think that that's going to be applicable to you because it was applicable to the sample size used.
Yeah. Just like advocating for yourself. Just
absolutely.
Like you have to advocate for yourself and ask the questions and get a second, resource, get a second opinion, ask people. And, it is hard, especially if you're not educated on something, but you can follow like Rita's lead and get educated, read the books, ask the questions, look up articles, and deduct for yourself what's going to be best for you. And I think the more that you do that, you know you best. And I said that to Rita at the beginning of this podcast. You know you best. You know what you're feeling. You know what, you're like, I really don't feel like this is good. I feel like this is affecting me. Like all those things are going to help you be the healthiest version of you, mind, body, and spirit, in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. All the teams.
All the teas. So is there anything before we hop off, Rita, that you would love to say just about, your coaching, women in the space that, live with endometriosis or anything like that?
Listen to your body and advocate for yourself. I know it can be really hard. I know it can be really scary, especially if you're somebody that feels like you've gone from doctor to doctor and you are not getting answers. Do not give up. Okay. Like, as somebody who has been in this position, like, I know what it's like to go from person to person and not get help, but I was able to eventually find it. So do not give up and then just say F it and try to figure it all out on your own when deep down you need that help. Because me trying to figure it out on my own because nobody was helping me just prolonged the process. I got sicker. I did not get better. And it did not help the whole alone thing. All right. And I know if I would have gotten help sooner, it would have kind of expedited my journey. Right. And I know not everybody is in a place to jump into coaching, but I do have lots of ways people can learn from me. So if you go to my website, radiatewithrita.com, I have a couple masterclasses on there. On my Instagram, radiate_with_Rita, I also have a few different masterclasses in my bio. I actually just did a masterclass last week on endometriosis and PCOS and how to holistically manage these conditions. So if you have endo or you have PCOS, maybe you have both, check out that masterclass. It's literally $20 and there's so much info in there. And I have various other offers ranging in prices in terms of like free masterclasses and some that are like lower ticket. And then I have multiple ways people can work with me if you're looking for a little bit more of a personalized experience. I know for most of my chronic illness peeps, most of us are not ready to just jump right in and hire somebody. It takes us a long time to warm up. I know it takes me a while to warm up and I really have to feel like I trust the person that I'm investing in because I got some trust issues, okay? And a little bit of medical trauma, #medical trauma. So do your research, advocate for yourself, but do not freaking give up because just because you have a diagnosis or a disease does not mean that it has to be your life for the rest of your life.
Yes. Also, definitely check out those masterclasses. I will also put all of this in the show notes. So if you're like, forgot, because that happens, I'll put it in the notes and you can go click over, check Rita out, and feel free to slide in her DMs, ask her all the questions. She's a wealth of knowledge and super open person. So she'd be ready to answer for you.
My DMs are always open.
My DMs are always open. All right, Rita, thank you so much. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Make sure to share this with your friends. And then I will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks so much for having me, Emily.